Hello guys, and welcome to the first review of my Daily Dose of Ginger book club. This month you guys voted for a really great book by Professor Luke O'Neill, which is called Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Science. Very controversial title, but brilliant book. And as many of you who follow me on Instagram are fond of science, and I record Science Sundays most weeks to cover different topics in health and science and pharmacy. I thought this would be a great book for us to start with, so I suggested it as one of our options that we could vote for, and lo and behold, you guys voted for it. So I'm going to share what you guys shared with me in terms of what you thought of different chapters and what you took from the whole book. I'll share my experience with it, how I got on, and I'll let you know if I recommend it. So if you haven't read it, I don't give too much away in this review, so yeah, it's definitely worth having a listen and seeing how we all got on. I will reveal what you guys voted for next month's book club in case you want to get involved. So let's get into it. Now guys, so for any of you who know me, you'll know that I am indeed a scientist. Graduated in 2020 with my Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy, and I'm still doing my Masters of Science. But even having said that, I really appreciated the simple language that was used in this book throughout. So whenever Professor Luke O'Neill explained any of the concepts within it scientifically, it was super simple, and in my opinion, and from what you guys have told me, is very simple to understand whether you're from a science background or not. I think it can be really alienating with any topic if it's constantly explained in a way that can't be understood by the general public. Like if someone was to explain some architectural concept to me and only use the concepts used by academics in the architectural field, I would probably think that I do not know anything about architecture, I don't have the capacity to understand it, and maybe just like completely mentally block off that topic in my head. So when science, and with science being so important, and especially now more than ever before, and more discussed now than ever before, I think, in the public media, with it being so important, it's so important that it's explained to us in simple terms, and that's exactly what Professor Luke has done in this book, which is a huge reason why I liked it. As I said, I'm coming from a science background. Doesn't necessarily mean that when I read my book in the evening, this book, that I want it to be kind of like completely complex and academic. I wanted to enjoy it, and I did, because it was simple to understand. He used pictures, like the pictures are stunning. Just to prove a point, he used different pictures and different instances and to explain different processes, and at the start of each chapter as well. Like, I don't know, I just really appreciated that. And yeah, my copy is well leafed, by the way. I don't know what it is with me and books and notebooks and everything. I can't keep them in pristine condition, so I just buy my own. I don't borrow anyone's because I know I can't return it to them in the same condition. In terms of the language used and the style in which it's written, like, I have to give it such a high rating, because basically I just think it's so accessible, and it's a tool for making science accessible to the public, and even for encouraging adolescents in their secondary school education or high school education to pursue science. And it's also entertaining. He wrote an entertaining style. He used humour. Like, for example, I thought this was really funny when he explained, like, you know, if you meet someone with the same birthday as you, like, I'd be the same as well. You'd be like, oh my god, like, this is crazy, I can't believe we have the same birthday, what are the chances? And he goes through probability as like a concept in science and maths, and he's like, well, the chances are actually 1 in 365, so like, don't know why we're all so amazed. And then if you put people in a room, there's a 50-50 chance of someone having the same birthday if there's only 23 people in that room. So like, the chances of that happening, like when you say what are the chances, pretty high, relatively speaking. So just to explain those common concepts in kind of a comedic and humorous way is like really appreciated and really accessible. So in terms of the content, so each different chapter had kind of a different theme, which I loved, and it meant that you can easily just pick it up and put it down. I tended to pick it up more than I put it down, to be honest, because it was really enjoyable. Honestly, I genuinely have positive things to say, just because I really did enjoy this book. Every book review may not be positive, this one is. Professor Luke O'Neill was actually one of my lecturers, as it happens, When I was in first year, he was one of the lecturers for our biology module, and I definitely didn't fully pay all of my attention at that time, I bet, just out of tiredness of first year and all of the things, but if I could go back, I think I would be much more attentive. The chapter on dieting was actually one of my favourite chapters for the simple reason that we are having an obesity epidemic at present, with it being one of our major concerns, and Luke O'Neill highlights that in the book. But basically he explains how obesity can come to be, and kind of like completely scientifically explains why it's not necessarily and it isn't the person's fault, that there's so many factors that result in a person becoming obese, such as genetic factors, which can play a huge role, environmental factors, the society we grow up in, and it really helps to take the stigma out of something like obesity. And again, in the chapter relating to addiction, he goes into the details on the genetic aspects with addiction. Same with criminal tendencies can have a genetic basis. Of course, there are a number of different factors, but the way in which he explains that we need to be less judgmental as a society of people who find themselves in different situations, like for example in jail, or suffering from obesity, or addicted to drugs, it takes the blame away from it, and really helps us to understand from a scientific basis how this happens, and therefore how we can potentially address and prevent such things from happening in future, with a combination of approaches which may involve medical treatment or may involve counselling, or a combination, and addressing these issues from childhood is often a huge factor as well. So when I think about my favourite chapters in this book, God, like every chapter is so relevant to today's world, and even to my own life and the society that we live in, that like I really genuinely did enjoy each and every chapter. But the one that stuck with me the most was probably the one about the differences between men and women. I just felt so empowered by the science in it, and kind of never thought to apply science in this way to the justification of, like, removing inequalities between men and women. Like for example, where do we actually see clear differences between men and women? Because we know there are many areas where there are no differences, but it's interesting to look at the fact that we know that women live longer. However, he's highlighted that they tend to have more sick days as such, and to suffer from many autoimmune diseases. Women are 10 times more likely than men to develop eating disorders, for example, and be twice as likely to suffer from depression, whereas men are 4 times more likely than women to have autism and to suffer from schizophrenia, and twice as likely to die by suicide. And this difference is especially marked in Ireland, where 4 out of 5 suicides in 2018 were male. So he often relates it to Ireland, obviously him being Irish, and I'm Irish as well, so it was really great to see that related back. But also equally to anyone who was reading this from another country, Ireland, is a developed country and a good example of a developed country. The really interesting part of this chapter is around IQ and how men and women are basically equal in that respect, which we love to hear, and we love to see the science to back that up. Men and women perform equally well on IQ tests, and males and females were found to be highly similar when it came to skills such as reading comprehension, mathematics, communications and motor skills, such as manual dexterity, which is often not perceived to be the case in the media. So the gap in achievement in maths, for example, is largely 0, so enough of that saying that men are better than women in terms of mathematical skill. Okay, the point that I really liked, and in terms of looking at how you can be a successful leader, is the fact that when he highlighted that when psychologists look at leaders in companies, key traits transcend sex. So successful leaders of both sexes show empathy that will persist and then become problem solving. So they have a mix of both problem solving and empathy, which normally people are like, women are empathetic, men are problem solvers, but the key leaders of both sexes show both traits. So in order to be the best leader, you really need to harness both of those traits. So if we stereotype something like empathy to women and, you know, allow almost men and boys to not access that side of themselves, it's actually a hindrance. And this type of gender stereotyping makes us, you know, less equipped to problem solve and to be amazing leaders in our professions. So I suppose a mixture of what would typically be seen as male dominant and female dominant features, combining those, and you're gonna get that bread. You're gonna be a great leader, and it's just really interesting to see the science behind that as well, and the statistics and the studies, and that's what I love. I also found the arguments around same-sex schools versus mixed schools really interesting. Having gone to an all-girls primary and secondary school myself, there's more pressure to perform socially for girls in single-sex schools. Girls do better academically in single-sex schools, but the pressure can be too intense for many, and so they ultimately end up underperforming in all spheres. The psychologist Oliver James has recently identified high-performing 15-year-old girls as the unhappiest group of people in England or Ireland. Like, that is crazy, because, and this is bringing it back to myself and my own experience, but like when I think about that, that is so true to me. So it's interesting to see that that's not just based on opinion, but it's been studied, and results have been found scientifically. So as with all the topics discussed in the book. So just to read out some of what you guys said were your favourite chapters. So Megan O'Connor said that the chapter on vaccination really stood out for her. She thought it was so interesting to see the stats and the history, and feel that it would be beneficial for this to be read by anyone who's on the fence about the COVID-19 vaccines. And like, when I look at the chapter, Dr. Luke O'Neill has said that, you know, some of his friends with law degrees and business degrees, they all say they've heard scary stories, they don't know what to do with their children, and they often ask him, you know, should I vaccinate my child? And his answer is unequivocally yes. And where's the evidence for that? He goes through it, he explains it, and for anyone who is on the fence about vaccination, absolutely get this book, read this chapter. It just explains it so simply. He goes through examples like measles, and how 9 out of 10 people sharing a living space or a school with an infected person will catch measles, and like all the negative effects that can have compared to the minuscule side effects of a vaccine. It's just incredible to read about it in such an easily accessible way. I keep saying that, but it's so true. Another one of you guys sent in saying your favourite chapter was Why Don't You Just Cheer Up? And this is the one about depression, anxiety, and it gave amazing insights into depression and the way antidepressants work, and I just never knew this before. That was Laura Brassel who said that, and it's so true. I really enjoyed that chapter, and Luke gave his own perspective on having suffered with depression, and how common it is, all the different factors that go into causing someone to suffer from depression. Yeah, I love the way he explained the blockbuster drugs like Lexapro, and how serotonin is a fascinating neurotransmitter, because dopamine often gets a lot of credit in terms of being a happy hormone, and so he really explains about serotonin, and how a lot of the antidepressant drugs are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, meaning that they block, you know, the kind of uptake of serotonin, which allows it to kind of float around in your brain a bit more and have positive impacts on your mood and that kind of thing. Like, he also explains key scientific factors, such as what a double-blind placebo-controlled trial is, and that's something that you might hear in the media and be like, what does that even mean? And he just shows, like, you know, like drug, placebo, and like, you know, this guy taking the drug says it makes him feel better, this guy taking the placebo said it makes him feel better, and like he's not getting any drug, and it means that if it's double blind, neither the patient nor the person administering the medicine knows what the person is getting, so it's not biased. And like, just being able to explain those scientific terms in such a simple way is so incredible. I'm going to read some of your responses from when I asked you about how you're getting on with the book throughout the month. Someone said that they love how it's such an easy read, they can pick up a chapter without knowing what happened in the previous ones. Someone else said, absolutely loving it, the information is so digestible and the topics are so interesting. Some of you said you're shattered with homeschooling but still getting through it. In terms of book club, a lot of you were saying that book club is giving you the inspiration that you need to, you know, keep going, a bit of accountability, and I found that too. I probably wouldn't have got through the book. I definitely wouldn't have got through the book in the month. I only finished it in the last few days. If it weren't for book club and knowing that I had to, you know, kind of review it with you guys and know what you guys were talking about when you're reviewing it yourself. So as an overall, book club seemed to help keep us all motivated to read, and that's why I'm going to keep going into next month. We're going to run from the 14th of February up until the 14th of March, and the book that you guys have voted for, drumroll please, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. So this got a resounding vote for your number one choice for the book for next month. In second place was Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, and maybe that will be our book for book club after this. I'd love if when you guys are taking part in the book club, if you tag me in your stories and your posts on Instagram. I'm at dailydoseofginger21, and if you use the hashtag #dailydoseofreading, I will find you, I will interact with you, and I'm so pleased to see that this is making an impact in our lives. You know, during COVID, it's difficult to know what to do, and you know, you get sick of watching Netflix and you can't meet up with your friends. So it's great to take up a new hobby, to educate yourself, to learn about new things, and use this time to grow as a person. You know, there's so many intelligent people who've done all the work for us, you know, like Professor Luke has spent his life dedicated to science and to teaching future generations about science and the issues therein, as well as doing his own research. So why not learn from these people? Why not use COVID as a time to develop and, you know, soak up the knowledge of the experts, and yeah, just focus on our growth so that we can glow up by the end of all this, and you know, explore interests that maybe we never knew that we had. So thank you for taking part in book club with me. I've really enjoyed it this month. I hope you'll stick with me for next month, or if you didn't take part this month, that you'll join in with Atomic Habits. So I'll share like some links to where you can get it. There's a BorrowBox app here in Ireland where you can get library books in the form of audiobooks and ebooks online for free. So I'm going to check out and see if that's available, and I'll let you guys know. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching the review. Leave your comments below, let me know what you thought. I still want to know all of your thoughts from the book, what stood out to you, and share this with any friends who are thinking of reading the book or who have already read the book. And yeah, have a great week guys. Happy first month of book club, we did it together, and yeah, I'll be chatting to you about the next one, so take care.